Hey everyone. Today's video is going to be my review on the my much anticipated release of Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver Remaster 1 and 2. It's actually going to focus mainly on Soul Reaver 1 because that's my favourite of the two. I might do a Soul Reaver 2 sort of review, but I actually haven't really played the remaster of 2. Yeah, I spent pretty much all my time on Soul Reaver 1. So, I have to be honest, just for a bit of background info on my exposure to Soul Reaver, I I remember playing this. I remember owning this when I was, it must have been back in high school, uh, when I had my original PlayStation. You know, I had all of the bangers. You know, Metal Gear Solid, Siphon Filter, Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, Fear Effect, Resident Evil 2, 3. I'm an old school I'm an old school uh, PlayStation fanboy. There you go. I'm just gonna say it. Maybe fanboy's a bit extreme, but yeah. Actually, before I carry on, if I sound a bit croaky, it's because I am a bit croaky. I've got a bit of a sore throat, but I wanted to record this anyway. But Soul Reaver, I have a real fond uh, sort of relationship with Soul Reaver. I absolutely love this game. I love this game. This is like this is like one of my all time favorite games. One of my all time favorite world in a video game. The lore, the voice acting, everything. So I think this review, I say it's a review, but realistically, it is ultimately going to be a bit biased because um, I ultimately do love the game. So, but it doesn't mean that I don't have things to say about it that are not as sort of positive. So I'm really just sort of voicing those out, not because I mean any ill will. It's just I love the game so much that I just want it to be as good as it can be. Obviously within the scope of it being just a remaster, because this is 20. I think I bought this for £20, pound sterling. So each game is about 10, £11, which is kind of what PlayStation One remasters that get sold on the PlayStation Store go for. So, fine, fair enough. There's only so much that they can do. I'm sort of rambling a bit because I am a bit ill as well, so apologies for that as well. But, I'll just start off with my kind of quick overview summary of my impressions of this remaster. You know, Overall, I think it's a really good remaster of a PlayStation 1 game. Obviously, given the sort of confines of the budget and the time that was spent into this, I think they've done, like, you can tell this was made by people that love the franchise, and that's always a good thing. I think overall, as a Legacy of Kain fan myself, seeing this, it's actually quite strange seeing this run at a higher frame rate. I think the original must have run at like 25 or something, 25 frames per second or something like that. And to see it run so buttery smooth and it's really, really, it's kind of bizarre to see, but it's also kind of cool to see as well. But I think what they've done with the character models is so impressive. And I think overall, for someone who is a sort of long time fan of the series, um, you're gonna like what you're gonna get. Now, you know, having said that, there's things that I wish they'd done to the remaster that they didn't really do, and I get it. It's a remaster, and I get that. It's not a AAA. It's not like a Demon Souls remake scenario situation. I get it. And it's just there's things that I wish that they had done uh, to just kind of really, make it as good as it can be. But I mean, I'll go over some of the positives. So, like I said, the character models are really well done. What I actually didn't realize, so they've updated all the character models, the boss models, the NPCs. They're really nicely designed. I mean, the enemy designs are so cool, and they've done a fantastic job in that respect. What I didn't realize was that for some of the characters where they have faces, because obviously not every, like say Raziel hasn't got like lips to move, right? He's got like a scarf over his face, whatever. But for some of the bosses and NPCs, they actually went out of their way to lip sync, to lip sync the voices. Like I think I first noticed this with Cain and Ariel in the Sanctuary of the Clans, and then I really noticed it when I was fighting Rahab. I was like, wait, is he lip syncing? Like, I couldn't I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was amazing. I was like, oh my god, they actually went out of their way to lip sync, and that was really cool. The character models are the absolute standout. It's like they're so good, they're almost too good, and I'll talk about that a bit later in the kind of not so positive section. Um, but other things as well. So they've up-resed all the textures and everything. They've gone over things with like um like they've gone over it, and they've really smoothed over a lot of the rough sort of texture work and the texture warping that was quite common back on the PlayStation 1. There is a feature where you can switch between the original and the remaster, and the character model update it is really apparent. Um, they've also added like little things that were cut. So there's a day night cycle that they added back in, which is really cool. They've added really nice things, like quality of life things like skipping cutscenes, um, UI interface updates, um, just like little things just to make it a little bit more palatable to today's audience. Um, um, what else is there? I mean, like, oh, sorry, my mind just went blank for a second. The the bonus content is really cool. They've put a lot of, and again, it just kind of shows like this was made by people who love this franchise. The bonus content for both Soul Reaver 1 and 2. This fan art. There's CG renders, and I think in the case of Soul Reaver 1, you have the lost levels. So these are the cut. So these represent the major cut areas in the original version of the game. If you want to know more about that stuff, I'm not going to go into it in full detail because there's entire communities that have been keeping that stuff alive. The Lost Worlds, Reign of Orderin, Ancient's Den. I'm missing some. Sorry, I'm just doing this on the fly. But yeah, if you want to know more about the cut content and the lost content, if you will, yeah, definitely have a look online. I'll leave some links in the description if you want to have a look. But what's really cool is that you can explore those lost levels. I think my favorite is actually Kane's Mountain Retreat. So again, I said I wasn't going to go into the content too much, but they were alpha versions of Soul Reaver that were released about 2 years ago. Um, that you could download and play on an emulator. And what was really cool was that in those alpha versions, it had Turel's lair, the priestess, Undercity area, and then it had Kane's Mountain Retreat, but it was only literally just one very small part of it. And what was really cool about the Lost Levels was they actually pretty much, I think they incorporated the entire Kane's Mountain Retreat, they actually sort of restored it, not restored it into the main game, but they made it so that it was as complete. Well, say as complete, but they made it so that it was as they update they sorry, I'm trying to say they they made a version of the Mountain Retreat area available to play through that was as good of a mock-up of what they were trying to do as possible. And it's just really cool how how it actually connected to the pinnacle of the Silence Cathedral via this connecting bridge. I have my own suspicions about that, but it's cool, right? The bonus content and like that sort of stuff for a like a Soul Reaver fan, like me, like I love that stuff. So the bonus content's awesome. The updated graphics to the updated character models are so good. And again, like you're getting two games in one. So that's a lot of game. It's a lot of video game to be playing over Christmas. Um, so I suppose this is the part where I kind of start talking about I don't want to say negatives. I'll say the not so positives or my sort of my kind of lingering thoughts, if you will. My kind of, I suppose, like wishful thinking. Things that I wish were in the game, and just my thoughts for the remaster on a more critical level, let's say. So, I think one of the things that you have to bear in mind with this game, with this remaster, is that ultimately it's a remaster of a PlayStation 1 game. And not just, a PlayStation 1 game, it's a PlayStation 1 game that, by the standards of today, is a little bit outdated, a little bit, yeah, it's a bit dated. It's a bit, I don't like using the word jank. It's not janky. It's a game of its time, right? Now, for people like myself who are fans of Soul Reaver, right? We don't care. Like I played this in the original. I played this on original hardware. Um, I, I knew what I was getting myself into. I knew exactly what I was getting myself into. So it's not like I was surprised. But I can't really imagine what someone would think playing this today in 2024, because the gameplay is the same as the original. Now, you might think, well, yeah, duh, it's a remaster. But what I mean is, it's the exact same game that I played over 20 years ago, right? Now, the thing is, obviously, lots of things have happened during, there's lots of things that have happened since then that have changed in gaming. And the thing is that by the standards of today, the gameplay in this is pretty, I don't want to say simple, but in terms of the exploration, the exploration's cool, don't get me wrong. I think the block puzzles are something that people would kind of have a panic attack over, you know, uh, but again, it's like if you're a gamer of that time, if you've played this already, then you know what you're getting yourself into. It's just because, from my understanding, the whole thing about sort of re-releasing Soul Reaver was to kind of gauge the public interest and desire for a new game, like a new, like a sort of a new full-on, AAA, heavily invested Soul Reaver, so Legacy of Kain game. And to be honest, presenting this to a new audience without making changes to the gameplay loop isn't really, in my opinion, the best way of kind of showcasing the best of this game, this franchise, to a new audience. Personally, that's just, because there are elements like, I mean, the gameplay loop, like the combat and everything, is pretty simple. It's pretty, like the combat's not very deep. The puzzles are quite clever. I do like the puzzles, but they can be a bit repetitive, with the block puzzles. And I think on the whole, it is a game that is of its time, and I know this is outside of the scope of the remaster, because it's not a remake, it's not a reimagining. But the issue is that the gameplay loop really needed to be updated. If you're trying to if you're trying to showcase the best of, say, Legacy of Kain, right? If you're trying to, really get people excited over, you know, say, like, a 25-year-old franchise that's been somewhat dormant, um, you know, you want to put your best foot forward. And I think with this is kind of like a half step. I get that they want to retain the. I know they want to retain the sort of. They want to retain the original, right? They want to showcase what the original was about, and you know what? That's cool. But you know, I think what I'm worried about is not having a lot of faith in modern day gamers picking this up and wondering, you know, wait, what the hell is this? Like, what's going on? And that's kind of the issue that I have with this is that if this is meant to if this is meant to capture the imagination of a new audience for Soul Reaver, for Legacy of Kain, then I wish they had done like a remake, like a reimagining, because, and this is where I'll go into some of the not so positives here. I wish they had gone through the entire game with the same attention to detail that they put into the character models, as as with the environments, because and just the game as a whole, because when you have the option to switch between the PS1 version and the remaster, what you notice is that the environments don't change a lot. They don't really change. It's not a huge jump. Like it's not that big of a difference. It's not that big of a difference. The sort of jump um, in the level of detail and the texture. I mean, it is, but it's not a huge jump. And not just that. It's like, okay, I suppose an easier way of explaining this is look at look at the character model for Raziel, right? He looks awesome. But then look at the model of the Soul Reaver that he's wielding, right? That's basically the same model as the PS1 version, but it's just been slightly up-resed, and it's like you couldn't have redesigned the Soul Reaver to look, better, or to look just newer, just to make it look, because it just, the thing is, it just sticks out like a sore thumb. Like, it really does. It sticks out like a sore thumb when you've got this really gorgeous looking Raziel model, and then next minute you've got like a PlayStation 1 texture, walking, like, it's just, and it becomes quite jarring when you've got these really nice character models, and then you've got these PlayStation 1 assets that have just been up-resed, and it's like it's not a one size fits all solution. Like, you can't just up-res PlayStation 1 sort of textures and think that it's going to coexist with these really nice character models. It's, I wished, and just little effects, just, because you can tell that they could do that. Like, another example is if you go to the Drowned Abbey to find Rahab, if you notice, they've actually incorporated. They've actually added these lightning effects, these lightning bolt effects, to basically showcase the fact that um, like it's a thunderstorm, like like there is a lightning storm happening. It's not just it's not just it's not just, oh, it's raining, like in the original. It just seems like it's raining, whereas in the remaster, what they've done is they've added like lightning. But if you actually look at the lightning effect, it just looks a bit cheap and a bit, and it's just, I and again, I'm not saying this to be nasty or mean. I understand that a lot of time and effort went into making this, and for it to even exist, in 2024 is awesome. It's just, this is coming from someone who this is coming from someone who, absolutely loves uh, the franchise, and I want there to be a new game. I want there to be a fully, like AAA Soul Reaver game, right? Um, so, I suppose in a concise way, what I would say is, um, the visual upgrade hasn't been universally applied. It hasn't been spread across the bread evenly, like so to speak. Um, it's like having a really high res, really detailed character model run around effectively a PlayStation One world with nicer tech, with sharper textures, but not much else done to the game world. It is kind of jarring. So I'd probably say I wish they had updated the game. I wish they had updated the sort of gameplay loop. I wish they had done that. Um, yeah, I wish they had done that. I wish they had updated the game loop somewhat, somewhat to make it a bit more palatable to today's audience. Um, I'm trying. I think that was the real pressing one. I don't think there's, again, like there's nothing. I mean, there's nothing majorly wrong with the remaster. It's just the visual upgrade is a bit inconsistent. That's the way that I would describe it. Is it's just a bit inconsistent in the way that you know um, the character models versus the environment, etc. It's yeah, it's a bit, it's a bit weird. Um, I suppose that's kind of my major not so positive thing. I think everything else that I'm gonna say is really more like wishful thinking than actual negatives. But I think ultimately I'm happy this exists. I'm happy this exists. Um, you know, I think some of the criticisms that people have levied against the game, in terms of like, I think that I saw something about the saving, that it doesn't or like, they don't like the way that you can't auto save or something. I can't remember what it was, but I think the way, I think that's just, again, like that's just like a modern gamer sort of thing. I don't really think it is a problem, like the saving, because if you think about the way that saving works, when you save your game, and then you reload, you actually start off back in the underworld, in the Elder God's room, which makes you think, oh, that's a waste of time. I've got to go back into the world. But there's the platform that gives you the hint as to like what your next objective is. There's a warp gate right in front of you in the next room, and provided you've actually explored the world, you would have unlocked like the closest warp gate. So I don't really think that's a problem. I think that's just modern day gamers thinking that this is meant to auto save every 5 seconds, and but that's kind of what I mean, right? That's kind of the thing. Like, I don't trust today's gamers with really giving this game a fair crack, like a fair chance, because um, it is a game of its time. In many ways, it's a lot like playing Metal Gear Solid 1. Like, if you showed and gave someone today who's never played the original Metal Gear Solid, right? You like you stick Metal Gear Solid 1 under their nose, as in the PlayStation 1 version, and they'll think this was made with Play-Doh. Like they'll look at it and think that this was made, in Microsoft Paint, like with the way that the textures are. And I'm not trying to be mean. That's just, like that's the truth. Like, that's the way, games, like, I mean, on a visual level, it hasn't aged very well. Metal Gear Solid 1, um, and it's just, I really just want this game to put its best foot forward. But like you can see here how with the Soul Reaver, the Fire Reaver, like in the normal PlayStation 1 version, there's no it doesn't make a difference whether it's the Fire Reaver or the normal. But here, like, they've actually added this kind of orangey glow, right? Like, that's cool. Like, just little things just like that, just to pepper it and to really make the world just feel a bit richer and a bit deeper. Um, yeah, just, I kind of wish there was more of that. Um, but I forgot what I was saying now about Metal Gear Solid. About um, yeah, it's like it's 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 a remaster that I'm happy exists. I really am. I'm really happy that they actually, you know, that they actually got this out. It's cool, and I think, like, Legacy of Kain. Like, I'm gonna be honest, right? And people may not like this, particularly those from like the Souls like fandom or whatever. But this to me is what Soul Reaver. This is essentially what Dark Souls, sort of evolved from, right? Um, though in terms of having, when you think about Dark Souls and you think about Soul Reaver, they're both these interconnected worlds that have no loading. Like, realistically, they have no loading. Um, that are set in this kind of dark fantasy sort of world, right? It's just that this game came out so much earlier. Like, because I think that's the thing you have to remember, right? This came out on the PlayStation 1, right? Like, it was really ahead of its time. What I would love to see, and what I actually would have loved to have seen, I don't get me wrong. Again, I'm happy this is a thing. I'm happy I bought it. I'm very happy that it's here, right? But what I would have absolutely have preferred is a full full on remake of Soul Reaver 1, as in the original version, as in the one where you kill Kain, Kain's mountain retreat, Undercity, the whole shebang. And I think, honestly, this should have been made in conjunction with FromSoft. I think, you know, like, taking this, giving it to FromSoft, because, again, like I said, like, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Demon Souls, Sekiro, Elden Ring, all these games are essentially open world, interconnected video games, right? You know, Soul Reaver really is like the granddaddy of them, because because you have to remember, at the time that this came out, there was Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, that was somewhat comparable to this, but there wasn't really, you know, there wasn't really any interconnected open world, no loading video games like this. This really is what the Souls series kind of evolved into becoming, right? Um, so I think if there was a developer that could really, bring Soul Reaver, bring this into, you know, 2024, 2025, or 2026, whatever, I think FromSoft, or I'm trying to think of, like, maybe Capcom. I don't know, but I think FromSoft just sticks to mind just because the work they've done on on the Soul series, and having experience of making these open, these interconnected worlds, I think just would fit. And again, because there's also a lot of really cool lore in the Legacy of Kain series, and again, Souls games are kind of known for their lore as well. It's just, it just seems like a bit of a no-brainer to me. It just seems like a bit of a no-brainer to me that, there really should be some sort of like a collaboration between uh, Crystal Dynamics um, and FromSoft to really make a kind of a new Soul Reaver that plays like a Souls game. Not necessarily combat wise, but in terms of the world, the layout, the exploration, like that sort of thing. Um, but yeah, but I suppose the last thing that I can say is I really hope that the new fans, or that the new players that come across this and pick this up, I hope they give this a wide berth. Like, they really, are patient with this game. They don't, become too critical of this game or dismiss it because of elements of it being quite antiquated and quite sort of um, old-fashioned. Just um, because I think when you sort of get past the initial sort of hesitation, and and trying to dismiss the game, you know, it really is like an onion. Like, once you peel off some of the, like enough of the layers, you do have this really rich, engrossing, captivating world and characters, and um, just lore, and there's such an engrossing experience underneath all of this. And you just kind of have to get past some of the antiquated stuff before you really get to sort of see that. But that's kind of my, I don't want to say it's a review, but it's kind of like a review, initial thoughts, impressions about Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver Remastered. My recommendation is, if you're a fan of third-person action-adventure games, Metroidvania style games, Souls-like games, definitely give it a go. And to the new fans, definitely, give this game a chance. Don't just like dismiss it straight off because it's got kind of antiquated, because it kind of does. Like, it does have antiquated, old-fashioned style gameplay mechanics and loops, but um, kind of just get past that, and there is a game in a world here that's just so engrossing that you do want to sort of sink your teeth into, so to speak. But yeah, there you go. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, whether you agree, disagree. It doesn't matter either way. I I love this game. I'll always love Soul Reaver. So, but yeah, no, I mean, I suppose, like, jokes aside, it'd be interesting to sort of hear what you guys have to say about this remaster. Whether you would love to see a kind of fully fledged, Soul Reaver from soft style sort of game. But yeah, that's the video, and thanks for watching.